It's Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We thank you for joining us. Our guest is Jan Blacher. Jan is a professor at the University of California at Riverside. She teaches in the Graduate School of Education, and I am very glad you're here to talk about something that is on the minds of so many young families, and that's autism. What is autism exactly?
Autism is actually a neurological disorder. And it's not a disease, it's not an illness, it's not anything that can be caught, and it's considered a developmental disability.
And why is it that from your generation to my generation to this generation, it seems as if the numbers are soaring?
The numbers are soaring, and they're presenting considerable challenge for the public schools. The challenge is mainly due to the numbers. We used to talk about autism occurring in 1 in 2,500 individuals. That's what I learned when I went through school. Today we talk about 1 in 150.
Stunning.
It's absolutely stunning. And what I always tell students when I'm teaching and people like yourself is it's no longer a question of whether a public school or a private school teacher is going to see a kid with autism. It's a question of when.
I have 2 daughters, 5 and 7, autistic children in their presence. Talk to me about how parents, how teachers, how do we deal with this crisis?
Well, first of all, parents are concerned about who is teaching their kids and what they're teaching. And the crisis for the public schools is how to prepare their teachers for this tsunami of kids that are coming into the public school.
And what makes this tsunami so dramatic and drastic is we are cutting funding to schools, and sure enough, much of that funding is for special education.
It is, and one of the things that you know I'm concerned about is whether or not autism is going to be recession-proof. If you look at what's happening in this state, and you look at the legislature and you read about teachers being laid off, you know that education is a sell. But parents of kids with autism, people like myself who work in the area, are trying to convince people that it's a great time to invest. It's a buy. And I'll tell you why. Because the more time we put in with young kids with autism, the earlier we intervene, the more intensively we intervene, the more likely we are to see those kids successful in regular education, successful all through school, go to college, become tax-paying citizens, live a productive life.
One could argue it saves money when you intervene early and keep that intervention consistent throughout their education.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cutting early is definitely the wrong thing to do. And you know, I have students that identify themselves at the University of California to me as kids with autism who went through early intervention.
Tell me about your program. It's called SEARCH.
SEARCH stands for, it's a mouthful, Support, Education, Advocacy, Resources, Community, Hope. And it really is the first such center on any UC campus of its kind. First of all, it's an outreach service center as well as a context to train doctoral students in research. More importantly, its focus is on helping families get educational access to services.
Is there hope for those afflicted with autism?
Absolutely. As I said, the hope is in early, intensive services that will help ameliorate the condition.
How early?
Well, fortunately, kids with autism are being diagnosed earlier and earlier. Certainly, the diagnosis is reliable by 18 months. By age 2 or 2.5, we like to see kids in early intervention services so they can be ready for the public schools and kindergarten.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us and for all the work you're doing for families and children with autism. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having us here. And
for Local Edition, I'm Brad Pomerantz. Back to CNN HLN.